So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ryan Honeyman. Ryan and I recently got a chance, come on up, yeah. We recently got a chance to meet each other. Ryan is big enough here. Ryan is a consultant and author of the B Corp Handbook, How to Use Business as a Force for Good, and has helped over 30 companies like Ben & Jerry's and Method Soaps to become certified B Corporations. He's also a co-host and co-founder? Co-host and co-founder of The Next Economy Now, a podcast highlighting the leaders who are taking a regenerative, bioregional, democratic, transparent, and whole systems approach to using business as a force for good. I'm going to put in a plug for that podcast. I listen to that thing routinely. Next Economy Now is amazing, and we are really being treated by the opportunity to listen to Ryan today. So thank you so much. Let's welcome Ryan. You got 10 minutes, brother.
It was like a transition. All right, thanks, Aaron. Hard act to follow, reading poetry, so I'll try to be brief and get straight to the point. So I titled my talk, Investing in the Next Economy. So what I'm going to talk about is my personal story, sort of how I got interested in this idea of how do we leverage capital to create outsized social and environmental benefit. So sort of how I came to it. The second part of my talk is going to be about Lift Economy, the company I work for, and the vision we have to completely redesign the economy over 500 years. Small goal. And then the last is 3 impact investors that I'm really excited about that I thought would pass along to see if any of you would be interested in looking them up. They're pretty cool. So I'll start with, I don't have an official consulting or impact investment or green background. My background is actually in psychology and criminal justice. So I studied, my sort of original passion was reforming the criminal justice system and prison reform. And after a few years of working, for those of you who have worked in the social services sector, it can be very depressing because you're sort of steeped in the problems. And so I got really, my brother had studied environmental studies, and I read some of his books and got really excited about how business could be a force for positive change. And so the sort of shift over into what can business really do to solve social and environmental challenges. And one of the movements that I've been associated with is the B Corp movement. So I know Leslie's here from North Star Asset Management's B Corp, of course Green Canopy Homes is B Corp, Lift Economy is B Corp, other ones like Patagonia and Ben & Jerry's. Any other B Corps in the audience? Woo! All right. I guess we don't have time. There's too many Seattle B Corps here. So I got really excited about how we can create positive change through business. So how we got to Lift Economy was looking at, there's sort of 3 phases to what we're doing at Lift Economy. So the first phase was, how do we help existing social enterprises with things like vision, culture, strategy, operations, so really helping existing companies scale their impact. And we started to realize that while it's great to do consulting work with companies, many companies are categorically excluded from access to capital, and especially women and people of color. And so we said, what if we could combine technical assistance or consulting services with capital? And so that's what my business partner Kevin's going to be up here speaking about the Force for Good Fund. But just a quick sort of plug is, it's $1 million fund that we've raised that is investing in about 13 women and people of color owned social enterprises that are creating outsized positive impact. And our idea is, how can we create an economy that works for the benefit of all life if we don't have more women and people of color in charge? And so that's sort of a bit of a plug to Kevin, which will go much deeper. So this sort of initial excitement about how capital can be used for good, and the sort of future, what we're trying to do at Lyft is to say, it's also not just about the investments, but there's many companies, and the way that the way that investment is set up, there's usually only 2 ways for companies to sort of get to the next level. They get acquired by a larger company or they go public, which both of those options are not usually, you have to be careful because they don't often lead to the best social and environmental outcomes. So one of the things we're really interested in doing in the future, and this may be more of the 20 to 30-year plan, is creating a holding company where social and environmental enterprises can scale, and then we could actually acquire them and potentially turn them into worker-owned cooperatives. So that's just a little bit of the forward thinking of what we're trying to do at Lyft. So some of the three investors that we're really excited about, Tenshed Ventures is the venture arm of Patagonia. This is particularly exciting for us because companies are starting to do corporate venturing. So instead of Patagonia just taking the profits and going to Yvon Chouinard's foundation, they're actually making investments in companies that support the social and environmental ecosystem. And there's been corporate venturing for a long time, but Patagonia is particularly exciting because their exit, they're sort of, when they want their money back is never or whenever. And that's unique amongst enterprises. So their liquidity time frame is very, very long. The second organization we're particularly excited about is the Working World. For those of you who don't know, the idea for the Working World came, one of the founders, Brendan Martin, went down to Argentina, and there was these economic challenges in the late 90s, early 2000s, where the founders of a lot of companies were broke in Argentina, and the workers actually came to work and just still worked and eventually took over the companies from sort of a worker organized movement. And so the Working World is really interested in how do we create worker ownership in low-income communities, because we want to keep capital in those communities, so non-extractive. The last investor, some of you may know Kat Taylor and Tom Steyer. Beneficial State Bank is here in Seattle. Shout out to Tom and Kat. The reason I'm particularly excited about them, I mean, Kat is one of my top 3 most favorite people in the world. For those who know her, she's a billionaire, but she gets up and sings songs to people. She's amazing. In addition to social justice, I guess not singing only. And Tom has been funding a $20 million campaign nationwide to impeach Trump. He's potentially running for president, so interesting guy to follow. So the last thing I'll say is this is a sort of shameless plug for Next Economy Now. It's our podcast. We've interviewed Phil Graves, who's the Patagonia Tenshed Ventures lead. We've interviewed Brendan Martin from the Working World, and we've interviewed Tom and Kat, Tom Steyer and Kat Taylor. So check us out. It's a weekly podcast, and thanks for listening.